Hi folks, welcome to another installment in our series, iPhone 101. So far in this series, we've introduced new users to the iPhone and the use of VoiceOver, the built-in text-to-speech system that comes on all Apple devices. Early on, we provided the pros and cons of using a smartphone, including an iPhone, and we may or may not have convinced some folks to purchase their first iPhone. It just may be that an iPhone is not for you. We suggested a variety of resources with which to make the decision to buy that first phone or to learn the very basics of VoiceOver and the iPhone. Many of you new users have asked us, how do I turn VoiceOver on and off in my iPhone? Well, this installment focuses precisely on that. So how do I turn VoiceOver on and off? Well, like so many things with your iPhone, there's more than one way to accomplish a task. The first answer is
VoiceOver on.
That's called the accessibility shortcut. I pressed my home button 3 times quickly and VoiceOver was turned on. Conversely, when I press my home key 3 more times, 1, 2, 3,
VoiceOver off.
VoiceOver goes off. But our approach to this series has been to teach you anything and everything you'll need to know on operating your new iPhone. So for the next few minutes, we'll show you how to manually walk through your Settings app and get into your VoiceOver menu. We'll show you how to tell a sighted person to turn VoiceOver on or off in your iPhone, and we'll help you set up that accessibility shortcut. 1, 2, 3.
VoiceOver on.
Finally, we'll take a walk through what's called the Voiceover Practice area in preparation for our next installment or 2, where we further describe the variety of VoiceOver gestures that you'll need to learn. So sit back and relax as we take you through your VoiceOver settings. So I'm on my home screen. Let's get into our Settings app.
Settings. Double tap to open. Swipe up or down to select a custom action, then double tap to activate.
Single finger double tap.
Settings.
Now I'm on the main settings screen. I want to get down to the General button, so I'll flick to the right until I get to the General setting to give you a feel for how far down the screen it is. I'll start flicking to the right.
Settings. Search field. P lane. Airplane mode. Wi-Fi. Bluetooth. Cellular. VPN. Notifications. Control center. Do not disturb. General button.
There's General. I'll double tap.
Selected. General. Settings. Back button.
We want to go to the accessibility menu, which is about halfway down the screen. Instead of flicking, I'll touch around halfway.
Accessibility button.
There we go. Pretty lucky. I'll double tap.
Selected. Accessibility. General. Back button.
I'll flick to the right.
Accessibility. Heading. Vision. Heading. VoiceOver. On. Button.
This is the VoiceOver menu, which we'll go into in a moment. But before we do, there is one item toward the bottom of this screen that we absolutely have to touch on if we're going to operate in a VoiceOver environment. Yeah, you guessed it. The accessibility shortcut.
Accessibility shortcut.
And it's located all the way at the bottom of this screen. So rather than bore you with constant flicking, I'll pause this recording to allow you to flick to the right to get all the way down to the bottom of the screen. But here's a challenge. We'll be covering additional VoiceOver gestures in our next episode. One of those gestures is the 4-finger single tap at the bottom of the screen. If you think you'd like to try that gesture now, give it a try. Put your 4 fingers together with just a little bit of separation in between your 4 fingers and touch the screen once lightly toward the bottom. If you hear VoiceOver say,
accessibility shortcut,
then you've made it all the way to the bottom of the screen without flicking. However, if you're having difficulty with this, go ahead and flick to the right until you get there. We'll be covering that gesture along with many others in our next episode. I'll pause the recording. I'm back. I know that took a while to find, but right now let's go ahead and flick to it.
Accessibility shortcut. VoiceOver button.
This is a very important setting because this will allow you to quickly turn VoiceOver on and off without having to navigate through the VoiceOver settings. Let's go into this.
Accessibility shortcut. VoiceOver button.
And I'll double tap.
Selected. Accessibility shortcut. Accessibility. Back button.
Flick to the right.
Accessibility shortcut. Triple click the home button for heading. Selected. Voiceover.
I have mine set for VoiceOver, and I would recommend that you do the same, but I'll continue flicking.
Invert colors. Color filters. Reduce white point. Zoom. Switch control. Assistive touch.
And that's it. So be sure that yours is set to VoiceOver. The benefit of this would be, for example, if you were to allow a sighted family member or friend to use your phone, you could quickly turn off VoiceOver. 1, 2, 3.
Voiceover off.
And then turn VoiceOver back on when they give it back to you. 1, 2, 3.
Voiceover on.
Pretty handy feature. We'll get out of this screen.
Accessibility. Back button. Accessibility shortcut.
So that's all we need to talk about on this main accessibility screen. The rest of our settings will be in the VoiceOver menu. So let me go back up to the top.
General. Back button. Accessibility. Heading. Vision. Heading. Voiceover. On. Button.
There we go. I'll double tap.
Voiceover. Accessibility. Back button.
A side note, when I first saw that button, VoiceOver on, off, with a button, I was afraid to tap it because I was afraid I would turn VoiceOver off. That will not happen when you double tap that item. However, there is a button that performs that action, and we need to be very careful of it. Let me flick to the right.
Voiceover. Heading. Voiceover. On. Double tap to toggle setting.
That is your toggle setting. If you were to double tap this button, it will turn VoiceOver off and none of your gestures will work. It's very difficult sometimes to turn VoiceOver back on without sighted assistance. A possibility is to ask Siri to turn on VoiceOver, depending on your Siri settings. We'll talk about Siri in a little bit more detail in an upcoming episode. If you do have sighted assistance and you're looking for a way to turn on VoiceOver, this button is the place to go. But I'll flick past it to the right.
Voiceover speaks items on the screen.
We knew this.
Tap once to select an item.
We knew that too.
Double tap to activate the selected item.
And that as well. See how far you've come? I'll continue flicking.
Swipe 3 fingers to scroll.
There's a 3-finger swipe to scroll. We'll be covering that in an upcoming episode when we discuss additional VoiceOver gestures. Continuing.
Voiceover practice button.
This is our VoiceOver practice area. When I double tap it, we'll be in a safe area, which means that we can practice our VoiceOver gestures and none of them will actually perform the action that they serve. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'll double tap.
Selected. Voiceover practice. Heading.
Let's flick to the right.
Done button.
There's our done button. Very important. It's in the upper right-hand corner of the phone.
Practice voiceover gestures, commands, and typing in this area. Select the done button in the top right corner and double tap to exit.
So we are now in our practice area. So any gesture that I perform will not actually be activated. For example,
flick right. Move to next item.
There it is. A flick right and the definition of the gesture.
Flick left. Move to previous item.
Cool, huh? I'll do one more.
Double tap. Activates the selected item.
These are all gestures with which we're familiar. Let me give you a few that we'll be discussing in more detail in an upcoming episode.
2-finger flick up. Red page starting at the top. 2-finger flick down. Red page starting at selected item. 2-finger scrub. Escapes the current context. 3-finger single tap. Speak page number or rows being displayed. 3-finger double tap. Toggle speech on and off. 3-finger triple tap. Toggle screen curtain on and off. 3-finger quadruple tap. Copy last spoken text to the clipboard. 3-finger flick up. Scroll down 1 page. 3-finger flick down. Scroll up 1 page. 3-finger flick left, scroll right 1 page. 3-finger flick right, scroll left 1 page. 4-finger single tap near top of screen, move to the first element. 4-finger single tap near bottom of screen, move to the last element. 4-finger swipe left, switch to the previous app. 4-finger double tap, toggle voiceover help.
And that last gesture, 4-finger double tap, will toggle voiceover help on and off. I'll show you exactly how that works when we get out of our practice area. For now, though, since we entered the practice area from our settings screen, there are only 2 ways that we can exit the practice area. First, we can locate our done button and double tap, and if we're unable to do that, we can press our home button once. Keep in mind, though, that that will bring us out of the settings app altogether, and we'd have to re-enter and find our way back to this point on the screen. So I will try to reach up toward the upper right corner, being careful that I don't go to the very top and touch my status bar.
Done button.
There's my done button, and I'll perform that single finger double tap to activate the done button.
Done. Voiceover practice button.
So before we move on to the next selection on this screen, let me show you what I meant with our 4-finger double tap. I'll perform that gesture now.
Starting help. To stop help, perform a 4-finger double tap or 2-finger scrub or press escape on the keyboard.
You can activate the voiceover practice area anywhere on your phone with a 4-finger double tap. So if I were to flick to the right now,
Flick right, move to next item. Flick left, move to previous item.
I am now in our voiceover practice area. I did not have to get into that area by navigating my way through those buttons. So now if I perform my 4-finger double tap again,
4-finger double tap, toggle voiceover help, stopping help.
I have stopped voiceover help. Let's continue flicking to the right on our voiceover settings screen. We won't be going into any great depth on the rest of this screen, but I did want to familiarize you with the rest of the voiceover settings.
Speaking rate, heading.
This is where we can adjust the rate of speech for voiceover. I'll flick one more time.
Speaking rate, 54%, adjustable. Swipe up or down with one finger to adjust the value.
As you heard voiceover say, you can adjust it by flicking up,
64%, 74%,
or down,
64%, 54%.
This feature can also be added to your rotor, making it simpler to change the speech rate. We'll be covering the rotor in a future episode in this series. Continuing to flick.
Use pitch change, on. Verbosity, button. Speech, button.
Here's our speech. We'll be delving into this one in our next installment, where we can talk about voices and languages and how to adjust our speech. So that pretty much concludes the voiceover settings screen. Just to summarize what we've talked about here, keep in mind that these are the very, very basic voiceover gestures, only the first 1 or 2 to get you started. We talked about the accessibility shortcut with a triple click of your home button to turn voiceover on and off. We showed you how to get into your accessibility menu and then into your voiceover screen. Finally, we introduced you to the voiceover practice area, an area with which you'll become a lot more familiar as we continue to learn additional voiceover gestures. While we have flicked to our various destinations in our settings app, and by the way, we did so for practice, there are simpler ways to get to those respective menus. For example, open Accessibility Settings.
Let's take a look at the accessibility settings.
Settings, general. Back button.
We're on the settings back button. Let's flick to the right.
Accessibility, heading.
So we're in the main accessibility screen. I'll get out of that. Let's try another one. Open voiceover settings.
Here are the voiceover settings.
Settings, accessibility, back button.
And let's flick again to the right.
Voiceover, heading, voiceover, on.
So as you see, we were able to get to both accessibility settings screens, the main screen, and then the voiceover settings screen. Keep that in mind that Siri can often get you to an app or a settings screen without having to flick. Just a tip. So that concludes this installment in our series. Stay tuned for the next couple of episodes as we continue to learn about additional voiceover gestures and as we continue to explore additional settings. Until then, don't hesitate to reach out by email at info@blindabilities.com. We're on Twitter. Check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com. And be sure to check out our app, free in the Apple App Store. 2 words, Blind Abilities. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.